Well, we just hit 300 episodes of Paper Napkin Wisdom. That's 300 napkins, enough to host a picnic for an army or clean up after one toddler. So to celebrate, I'm not giving you napkins, I'm giving you 3 free ebooks. Go to papernapkinwisdom.com, scroll to the contact form at the bottom, type book, and we'll send you the demand blueprint, the profit blueprint, and the gratitude ritual. That's $25 in value because wisdom wipes up better than ketchup.
Welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom, where we share pearls of wisdom shared by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers. Here's your host, Govind Jayaraman.
Hi, I'm Govind Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom, episode 319. Today, we're going to step into a story about travel, transformation, and what it really means to belong anywhere in the world. You know, once in a while you meet leaders whose work reminds you of something that you may have forgotten, or maybe something you've always known. Dan Perry and Michael Serapiglia, the co-owners of Toto Tours, bring that kind of presence. As you listen today, you might notice yourself remembering moments when you felt lost, or perhaps times when getting lost opened up something in your life. Toto Tours started more than 35 years ago with a radical idea that LGBTQ+ travelers deserve to see the world without shrinking or hiding. What began as a mission of safety has grown into a global brand built on community, courage, and curiosity. Dan and Michael are now guiding it into its next era with a blend of heart, creativity, and operational excellence. As you hear their story, you might start to imagine how your own work could evolve when you lead with empathy, or when you might see what is possible when you trust the path even when you can't fully see it. So as we dive in, allow yourself to settle into what part of their journey resonates. Let their experiences remind you that getting lost isn't a mistake, it's often an invitation. And maybe, just maybe, there's a view in front of you right now that's worth noticing. Let's dive in. Dan and Michael, welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom. Excited to have you both here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
This is really exciting. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to this for a number of different layers. First of all, I love traveling. We talked about love of Italy just coming into this, so talking about travel is interesting. But one of the things that I think is really interesting about your story is that you're taking over a company that's 35 years in the running, and it's your love of the company and love of what they do that has brought you into this business. So I want to talk about all of that as part of this. So really exciting. But let's start with your paper napkin. You said, remember, if you get lost, enjoy the view around you. Why did you share that with me?
It's something that we both has had happen to us more than once. There was one time, like in Italy, actually, in Venice, where we were trying to find one thing and we totally got turned around. And we were trying not to use our phones, just trying to be in the moment. And we stopped and we're like, we're not lost. How can we be lost? Just because we're not finding what we were looking for. So we just ended up staying where we were, enjoying the view. I think we got a coffee and we just took our time. And that's when we started to realize, oh, let's like slow down a little bit. Look around you. And if you're lost, you're not really ever lost, especially when you're traveling. And that way you get to meet other people you didn't think you would meet. You would see shops or restaurants that you didn't think you would ever get to see. And then those are sometimes like the hidden gems.
And we try to do that in pretty much every trip that we take. At some point or another, we see, where are we going to get lost today? And just see what comes up.
Off the beaten path. You know, we like to try to do that.
So first of all, Venice is a magical place for a lot of reasons, and it's remarkably easy to get lost in. It is.
Yes, it is.
It's remarkably easy to get lost in. I mean, for a town with such a big central square and so much history, it is very easy to get lost in.
And considering it's a bunch of islands, so you really can't like lose your way too poorly, but you will, because you're going to turn into an alleyway that you didn't expect to take in one direction.
That's right. That's right. I mean, you will run out of island at some point if you keep on walking, but There's no such thing as a straight direction in Venice, right? It's all curved. So what I really liked about it is it's and I wasn't expecting this, but your take off the top, Michael, was a little bit like Stop and Smell the Roses, but it was more personal than that because you look around you, you meet people, you actually absorb the culture when you get lost, isn't it? Like you're not following a script anymore.
No, and you're able to like then look at another person or like a local person and say, "Do you speak English?" or whatever, and then you can strike up a conversation with them, and then you're always going to find out something new. Um, it's so much fun once you kind of just let it go, and then you meet people and you see things you would have never seen before.
Yeah, and I like also how, Dan, you shared that, getting lost is now something you look to do, right?
Absolutely. We'll just go out on a walking tour by ourselves, obviously, and just see where it takes us. I've always been the kind of person that likes to explore ever since I was a kid. I was the kind of kid that would get off of the trails when we'd be hiking and kind of go into caves and see what's around the next corner. And I still have that about me. Like, what's around that corner? Oh, that looks interesting. There's a sign over there. There's a piece of art over there. Let's go look at that. And then the next thing you know, you've lost your way because you didn't keep track of all of the turns and twists that you took and you didn't bring any breadcrumbs. So you're just kind of forced to find your way out of the situation you put yourself in.
It's amazing. Okay, getting lost is the opposite of operating a tour company, though, right? Because I don't think people say, "Hey, here's this big check, go lose me in Romania or something like that." That's not what they're asking for.
No, but actually, it would be a nice little addition to our adventure series that we might want to do in the future. Tell us where you want to go, and we'll just drop you off somewhere. It's like
Hell will drop you in and out. It's a little bit like Deliverance, but not. So let's talk about that though. Do you, since you like it so much, is that something that you think you might include a little bit of the unexpected in some of the work that you do?
I think so. We want to take people on these tours, and what we do is we all get together and we go on tours during the day, or we go do things like that. We want to give them time to experience that on their own. So we want to tell people, you have like 2 hours, go do what you want to do. And then we're hoping that's when they can explore, get lost, find something new to do, see something unexpected. And on the other side of that, we also want to help kind of learn people to expect the unexpected. Like when we were doing a cruise to, we were doing the Christmas markets in Germany, and we were on this riverboat, and we couldn't get through some of the different waterways because there was a barge that kind of crashed into the side of the rock. So we had to stay for a couple days, and then we went on a different route. We went to a different city, and the people on the tour, a few of them got a little upset, but then once they got into it, they were like, "Oh yeah, let's just see what's there, and we'll go see something else." That's the nature of travel like that, especially when you're going to other places that aren't so touristy or set up perfectly for all of us to come in at once and see stuff.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So what I think is really interesting about that. Well, first of all, Christmas markets in Germany. This time of year, it's kind of a magical place, and all you can smell is Glühwein. And if
Yes.
you don't know what, yeah, so both of you guys lit up, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because the moment you walk into these Christmas markets, it's the smell that permeates the entire square, and it's a mulled wine with various herbs and spices. Cinnamon's a big deal, obviously, in it. But so that's the first thing that came to my mind. But Michael, you said this thing. Once you get into it, isn't that the part of the travel, right? Like a lot of people need to get out of it to get into it, and that getting lost is part of that, isn't it?
Of course. Yeah, you have to at first trust us to take you there. And once you're there, keep trusting us to make sure that, you'll have an amazing time and see things you wouldn't normally have seen.
And Michael, you come by this Dan, you come by this naturally when you talked about how you always left the path. You always left the trail.
Always.
Went to the cavern. So since that's your natural interest to get off the path and maybe get out of it so you can get into it, obviously that's going to be something that you're looking for when you're building these experiences, isn't it?
Yes. There's always got to be some kind of adventure lurking somewhere when we're taking a day trip or a tour, a walking tour of a city. I want to look through what the city has to offer and then maybe see where we can go in that area, maybe see if it'll take us somewhere, if there's an off the path moment that will let us get to that lost moment.
So let's talk about the off the path moment that brought you into being the new co-owners of Toto Tours, right? This is a company that's been around for 35 years.
Yes.
And it's got a legacy of creating journeys that feel more like a family than tours. And, there's a whole bunch of emotion tied up in that. There's a whole bunch of legacy tied up in that. What possessed you to try to take that on? What made you say, hey, that's something I want to do?
Well, just going back a little bit, we originally were in New York City, and then through a series of circumstances, both good and bad, we ended up here in the Detroit metro area. And right after that, I was working for another LGBTQ plus travel company, and I lost my job. So I was looking to try and replace that job with another one in the same industry. So I reached out to all the other LGBTQ plus vacation companies in the United States and Canada and said, I'm available. Do you have something that I can do? And Dan Ware, who is the former owner of Toto Tours, he wrote me back. He said, I'm not looking to hire anybody, but I have been running this company by myself for 35 years. And, I'm getting to the point where I want to retire. And so I'm looking for somebody to take it over. And originally, that wasn't what I wanted to do. I didn't think running a company was exactly my cup of tea. But the more I talked about it with Dan, and the more I talked about it with Michael, especially, we decided that this probably was where we wanted to do, what was the path that we wanted to take, because then it could allow us to live this life that we want to have and travel and see the world and meet people and just enjoy all of the wonders that this industry offers, but also keep it small. One of the things about that company that I used to work for, they do smaller things, but they also do the large charter ships where they're working with 3,000 people. And one of the things that really intrigued me about Toto is that it's intentionally small. Dan hasn't really kept a cap on his tours. We've tried to make it so that it'll be more around 20, 25 people. So it's intentionally an intimate situation. So everybody gets to know each other a little bit better. And that's where that family feeling comes in a little bit more. Because when you're on a charter with 2,000, 3,000 people, you might see the same people every now and then. But unless you really, really make an effort, you're not going to get to know that person in the amount of time that you're on that ship. So being in a smaller group allows our guests to really connect.
How important is that connection to you both?
I find it very important. I think it's really, let me backtrack a little bit. You're not going to get along with everybody that you meet all the time, but at least you're connecting with somebody in a specific way, and you're all sharing the same experience at the same time. You might not have the same experience as the person next to you. They might enjoy it, you might not, but at least you are there together, experiencing it together.
And one thing with Dan, he cultivated this big group of people. He has a really big mailing list, and a lot of those people have taken 10 tours, 22 tours over these years, and then they've made other friends, and then they bring their friends, and then all those friends get to be friends. And I'm sure there's been some relationships that have happened from this. I'm sure, there's lifelong friendships that have started 35 years ago that people are still taking the tours today. And that's what we want to keep cultivating. We want it to be, a great business where people don't have to worry about too much about, being gay or being, crazy and out there. We want everybody to kind of, like you said, be a family and get together and make friends, because that's very, very important, especially now.
So do one of you play the role of the crazy uncle or something like that? Because every family
that
has
would
its
be
own
Michael.
set of dysfunction, right?
That's me.
All right.
I'm the kind of outgoing one. I think it comes from my theater background, being a Broadway performer for many years and touring around, doing all the shows that I've done. I can talk to anybody. I like big groups of people. I've worked in film and television for years, so I know, I've met tons of stars, and I'm very, I can talk to anybody, and that's kind of my effervescence and what I do best. And Dan's amazing at being the calm, not necessarily quiet, but he gets everything done and remembers things and can look straight ahead and forge forward, where I'm just kind of having a good time and making sure everybody's having fun.
Yeah, and that comes from my background, not only as a performer, but as a musician. I am a tuba player, and tuba is definitely not a solo instrument. Now, a lot of tuba players would disagree with me, and I have played lots of solos, but it's support. It is a support instrument, and that's what I have found that I always have done best, just being the quiet support of the person who needs to be in the front.
Oh, I like that.
Well, I find that interesting because I read from your bios that, Dan, you were the performer. So when Michael was talking about being the one in front, I was like, wait a minute, but isn't Dan the performer? Now with the tuba, I understand a little bit better. So, I also, but I want to talk about this thing because a lot of entrepreneurs want to grow their business, right? Grow, become bigger and bigger and bigger. And you are talking about buying a business that was kept intentionally small to preserve this family feel, that maintaining that part of it is something that you want to do, but you don't believe that maintaining but I want to talk about growing the business versus growing your impact. You believe that you can grow your impact by staying intentionally small. And I think that paradox is something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, Dan. And I want to hear your take on that. Because what does that mean to you when you hear that?
I'm not going to say that we don't want to grow as a business, because obviously we wouldn't want to take on such a large opportunity if we just wanted to keep it exactly the way that it was. And Dan has done a wonderful job of keeping that business going for 35 years. But, he has decided that it's time to come bring his chapter to a close and pass it on to the next one. So we want to do that. And we want to help the business grow, in an impactful way, like you said, but also keep growing our mailing list, our guest list, because a lot of people who have been traveling with Dan Ware for the last 35 years, they want to stop traveling for whatever reason. They're tired. They want to just stop spending the money, whatever the reason is. And we can't have a roster of guests that continues to shrink. So we need to grow in other ways. We need to expand through technology and social media and get the name out. Because I will be honest, I had not heard of Toto Tours before I wrote to him. I did a little bit of deep dive for all the LGBT companies, and this is one came up, and I wrote to him and I said, let's talk. And then after we were talking about taking on the company is when I really dug into the grassroots about this and found out that he's been able to run this thing almost completely through word of mouth for 35 years. He has a social media presence, but it's not a large one. And that's one of the things that I really want to expand when we take over. I want to expand the online presence and get the name out so that as people are getting to the point where they're ready to travel, this is an option for them.
That's great. And so, Michael, I'm assuming that you heard of Toto Tours when Dan started to do his research. Is that right?
Yeah, I didn't know about it until he was doing the research, and he came to me and said, this man just wrote back to me and said, do you want to buy this business? And at first I was like, let's pump the brakes on that. Buying a business seems a little crazy. But like Dan said before, the more we got into it, and then we did go on one of their tours. We went to Belgium and we did a riverboat with them. And we met some of the people, and then it was all kismet. There were so many weird things happened from the time we met Dan in Chicago to the time we went to Belgium that just kept pushing Dan Perry and I to just wanting to do this. And we want to grow the business also by doing more tours. So, we want to have some more employees that will also be able to host groups. That's what Dan has done in the past, and it seems to have worked. He's had people who have been Toto vacationers come back and then lead tours to other places. So we're hoping to kind of expand like that way as opposed to that way. We want more tours, and we can do that when we have more people that we trust to lead the people around.
Mm-hmm. So the plan is to grow sort of wider as opposed to, that makes a lot of sense. So when you're evaluating, I've been an entrepreneur for 35 years, in and out of other businesses. So I've I've been intentional about wanting to grow in that direction. You had this opportunity, Dan, that just came up because you were looking for a job and one thing led to another. Sort of, you kind of got lost and it really liked the view as you went through the journey, right?
That is absolutely right. That's exactly what happened.
Isn't it funny? A lot of entrepreneurs, even if I think back to where I started, people say, well, how did you get started in business? Well, I did this, and then this one happened to this thing, and then this happened to this thing. That's your story here. But what your story isn't about creating a business. It's about liking what you saw
Mm-hmm.
and deciding to go in. So, Michael, you pumped the brakes on it initially. You were like, no, I don't think this is for us. What changed your mind?
Talking with Dan Ware, the owner, talking with Dan, my husband, and it just kind of little by little, it kind of, you get that thought in your brain and it starts tickling your brain, and you're like, I think maybe I can do that. I think maybe that makes sense to me. I like it because I love travel, and I've been traveling pretty much for the past 35 years. I want to keep doing this. I want to move forward. I want to see more of the world, and that's what got my insides all kind of tingly, which is happening right now. Um, it was just something that we ended up wanting to do, and we had doors closed to us, and then these doors opened, and that's where we kind of just. At one point, we were on the tour in Belgium. We were in the little hot tub in the front of the boat, and I looked at Dan. I'm like, "We can do this, right?" And he was like, "Absolutely." And then that's when we made the decision to do this.
Yeah, it really wasn't until that trip. Dan invited us to come. He had some extra space because some people had canceled their reservations. And so we just took those reservations over. And it gave us an opportunity to not only experience the style of Toto Tours, but actually to meet the people that were there. I think we might have been the only people on that trip that were first timers. Everybody had gone on at least one. Some had gone on 15 or 20 Toto Tours over the years. Dan would show us photos of these guys that were, they were unrecognizable. They were so young in this photograph.
There was one gentleman from Canada.
Oh, really?
That's yes.
Great.
Oh, that's true.
So,
Toronto.
Dan, thank you for saying Toronto properly.
I a long time ago.
But let's talk about that though. Like, so you're taking over a business where people are so loyal that they would go for 15 years or whatever that you said, right? So 15 trips, 15 years, whatever that is. That's amazing. So how do you continue, founder Dan's tradition while changing it? You don't want to lose those loyal customers, those brand ambassadors. You want to add to them. You want to grow them. So how are you going to be intentional about that?
Well, that's the $100,000 question, isn't it? Mostly through just learning from Dan. Not doing exactly. I don't want to do a copy, cut, paste, any of that, wash, rinse, repeat, any of that sort of thing. But I like the style that Dan has created. And it's actually a style that I have always enjoyed in my travels as well. Again, with those larger companies, there's always a party. There's always a theme, a costume. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. There is room for that sort of style of travel, especially in the LGBT community. And I want to eventually have a theme night once or twice, but I still want to keep it smaller and intimate. And for the people who really want to learn about a culture, immerse themselves in the culture, and not just be on the pool deck with their bottomless drink package.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. And so one of the things, Michael, you talk about how much you love travel. Dan, you were in the travel business, including the LGBTQ plus travel business before coming into, and before the both of you took over Toto Tours. So, sometimes entrepreneurs are reluctant to turn their hobbies into a business because there's nowhere to escape to. There's no hobby to escape to after you do that. Now, Dan, you were in the business before buying the business, so it was already work for you. But Michael, you talked about your love of travel. So, is there something about that for you? Are you hesitant? Are you concerned about that turning your hobby into a business?
I have thought about that, and I think that I've been doing it for so long. I've been such a traveling, and I want to say the word gypsy. I know we're not really supposed to, but that's what we used to call ourselves. In the theater, we were gypsies, and I was really good with picking up and going anywhere within a couple of days. That being said, I know I'll be tired, and I'll know that I've just seen a big, the pyramids in Egypt or something, but I'll want to go home and relax. And that will take me to my other job, which is a makeup artist, and an artist. So I'm an artist first. I've always been an artist first. And so then I plan to also incorporate that other side of my career to do that. And then I'll have my travel also. So I think I'll be able to balance things out that way, and I won't get burned out just traveling, and I won't be, especially with traveling, you're seeing something new all the time. Or we're going to go back to places that we've been to before, but we'll get lost and discover something new. So I think that kind of takes off that pressure of, my favorite thing to do is make jewelry. And then I get stuck making jewelry every single day. And then I hate making jewelry and I don't want to make it anymore. There's a big difference there, I think.
And as we grow, one of the things that I really hope is that we can, like Michael said earlier, bring in other people to host the tours. And then that'll give us a chance to plan it and get everything ready for all of our guests and create something that they're really going to enjoy, and then send somebody else off to host it. And we don't necessarily have to go.
So what about also, I mean, you've got so many things happening simultaneously, and I'm fascinated by it. You're moving into this business, but you're also a couple and you're partners in the business as well. And so that's another dynamic change in your relationship and your business relationship. What kinds of conversations are you guys having about how you're going to manage those changes?
Daily conversations. The topic at hand will change on a whim, on a dime. And we when we were telling our friends that we were getting into this adventure, a couple of them did say, "Do you really want to put both of your livelihoods into this one project?" And, it caused some pause. We needed to stop and really think about that and really decide, is this a smart idea? But luckily, we both have other things that we can do. Like Michael said, he's a makeup artist. He will continue to do that as we grow this project. And then, he will do his Toto work, and then he'll do his makeup work. And he'll be able to split time so we aren't absolutely 100% together all the time.
And as a couple, we found our path on how we do things together very, very early on. We've been together for 14 years, married for 8. And we found out really early that we just work really well together. Our first trip together was to Hawaii, and we had the best time. And I was like, oh, I could really live and be with this person. And that's we've been just the best of friends, and it's kind of worked out that way. This seems like a natural thing for us to do, and that natural could be, not the right word, but we fit easily together and we do things together. I mean, we do argue, we have this and that like normal couples, but we have the same kind of vision, and we also can shut off at the same time too and be okay with that.
Yeah, that's great. So thinking about maintaining the DNA of what Toto Tours was and adding to it, what are some of how did you determine the first things you're going to change or the first things you're going to add to it? You did talk about social media and just awareness of the company, but beyond the marketing, beyond adding a tuba-sized megaphone to the brand, what else are you going to do?
I always wanted to have a different set of series in the travel. We wanted to have something that was cultural. We wanted to have something that was adventurous. We wanted to maybe do a health and wellness kind of series. This last summer, when I was first trying to get people to jump on board with this idea that we had, I was talking to a lot of people, a lot of friends, a lot of strangers, a lot of just acquaintances wherever I would go. And one of the things that I heard over and over again was, I don't like to go on those LGBT trips. I mean, they call them the gay trips. They didn't like to go on the gay trips because they're not sober. And a lot of my friends and a lot of my acquaintances and people that I've met over the last couple of years are becoming more aware of sobriety. And so they don't want to be in an environment where everybody around them is partaking in a drink. And so one of the things that I thought about is, why don't we offer these health and wellness trips? It could be a yoga retreat. It could be a hiking trip. It could be something that just benefits somebody's soul. And maybe we keep that a sober trip. And then not everybody has to worry about being tempted by somebody who's next to them enjoying a cocktail. So that's something that Dan has not done. And so that was one of the changes that I decided that I wanted to do, as well as the adventure trips, a bike trip, a climb Mount Kilimanjaro trip. Now, these are going to be things that we have to really dig deep into when we're researching them, and make sure that we're aware of, potentials for injury and what can happen, and where will we go if that sort of thing happens. But I think there is enough of a community of these athletic and adventure-seeking LGBT community members, queer members, who want to do these sorts of things, and I want to provide that sort of trip for them.
Also, we talked about, surprised you didn't say this because it's one of your favorite things. We have friends that are talking about maybe retiring out of the country to another country, living there part-time. So we want to do something called the expat series, where we'll go to places where expats go, or, it's popular, or where people might want to go. And we want to open our company up a little bit too, to suggestions, not to people to tell us what to do, but we want to hear where they want to go. And so that kind of tied into our expat series. So maybe Mexico, maybe Portugal, maybe the places that people seem to want to retire and be in another country. That's another series we want to look at.
So I like, so I understand when I asked the question about how did you evaluate things that you wanted to change, you said, oh, you landed on series, and then you got to the how, and the how was you went to the market and you asked the market what they wanted to see. And one of the things that I've been noticing that a lot of people are doing when they're evaluating things is they're taking a little bit of a flyer on it, right? They're evaluating in a light version before going into a heavy version. And it sounds like you're adopting that same approach, aren't you? That you're evaluating it, but evaluating it light before going all in. It's not like you're going in this direction, now all of a sudden you're going in this direction. It's like, we're going in this direction, and we're just going to try this thing, and we're going to try this thing and see what the market tells us. Am I getting that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we want to respect and remember what Dan created. We want to keep the people that have been on these Toto tours still engaged, and we want to kind of switch a little bit over, and then they could bring more of their friends if they like it, just so there's a new freshness to it. We pay homage, to the people that came before us, especially in the LGBTQIA plus community. God, I said all the letters right. I'm standing on the shoulders of people that came up before us that had no rights, that had to do things very differently than we did. When Dan started this whole thing, he had to be very careful where they went 35 years ago and how they presented themselves. And that was a big thing that he cultivated and started. So we're learning from him also, how to do that, how to go to some of these countries that, there's laws against us, and figure those things out. So we want to keep we're dipping our toe, keeping that in there, and then kind of moving forward.
Yeah, there's a whole other conversation there, but that's a powerful place. And Michael, I really do understand what you're saying when you're standing on the shoulders of people before you, and I think paying homage to that is a great place for us to evoke a great story. 11 years ago, a man by the name of John Rulin gave us a paper napkin that says, "What you appreciate appreciates." When you appreciate people, they appreciate and value for them and for the community. And he always started with not what's the least I can do. It was always what's the most I can do. And that's how he lived his life. He started a company called Giftology and started a movement around gratitude that exists to this day. He suddenly passed away last year. And since that time, we've been asking every guest to appreciate someone. Who would you like to appreciate, Dan and Michael, today?
I'm just going to throw it out and say Dan Ware, the founder of Toto. He has been so supportive and excited for maybe some selfish reasons, this thing that he created gets to live on. Because before I even wrote to him and asked him for a job, he had planned to just shut Toto down completely. They have one trip left under his guidance. It's coming up in next month. It's in Colombia. And his entire plan was to just make that be the final trip, and then he would shut down. And then I contacted him, and he gave me this gift, this opportunity to carry on his legacy. It's really a beneficial relationship for both of us.
He's made a safe space. He's made a very safe space for all of these years for a lot of people who might be afraid to come out fully or might be shy or, he's made it okay to travel as a solo person. He's made people feel comfortable that sometimes never would ever feel comfortable, and they could never do the things that they've done. And then they go on a trip and then they meet new friends and then they come out of their shell. And he makes that so possible. And so we're trying to pay that forward, and we want to help people now do what he's done for 35 years.
I can see and feel the passion you have for creating that safe space, Dan and Michael. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining me with this conversation with Dan Perry and Michael Serapiglia. As you sit down with what you've heard, you might notice certain comments or moments lingering. A phrase, a feeling, an insight that seems to stay with you, and sometimes wisdom works like that, quietly reshaping the way you see the world long after the conversation ends. Dan and Michael reminded us that travel isn't just about movement, it's about meaning. It's about who we become when we're in an unfamiliar place and what new possibilities open up when we feel safe enough to truly explore. Their napkin says, if you get lost, enjoy the view around you. And maybe that's exactly what you thought you needed today. Maybe there's an area in your life or leadership where being lost isn't the problem, it's an invitation. Before you move on with your day, take a moment to reflect. What view in front of you right now that you haven't stopped to notice or appreciate? What part of your journey makes more sense when you stop trying to rush through it? There are a few key takeaways from today's episode that you might find yourself returning to. Empathy isn't soft, it's strategic. Legacy isn't something you own, it's something you carry. Safety creates the conditions for joy and for courage. Creativity and structure make each other stronger, and getting lost can be the most honest beginning of all. If any of these ideas resonated, I'd love for you to write down your own reflection on a napkin, just a few words, and share it with me and the community using the hashtag #PaperNapkinWisdom. Your insight today might be exactly what somebody else needs tomorrow. And remember, wisdom is everywhere when you slow down enough to notice it. Thanks again for listening. I'm Govind Jayaraman, and I'll see you next time on Paper Napkin Wisdom. Make it a great day.
When life happens and you need care fast, you can teledoc that. Need help navigating big changes? You can teledoc that too. From checkups to check-ins and everything in between. For your physical health or for your mental health, you can teledoc all that. We've got doctors, therapists, specialists, and coaches all available by web or app. Get started today at teledochealth.com. That's TELADOC health.com.